So it's been a couple of weeks, but we do have to talk about an album that has certainly circulated among the metal community and has gotten them talking. And that's Elements of the Infinite from the band Allegaeon. This is their third album. They are based here in the United States of America. They are a band that definitely is able to hybridize and combine technical death metal along with melodic death metal, two things that definitely feel, and really by explanation and definition, seem as though they should go together hand in hand anyway, and which most of them do. However, to have that true balancing point, to really balance both of the aspects very, very nicely instead of leaning more in one direction or the other, is something that's very difficult for a band to do, something that you don't see exhibited all of that often. Instead, it's something where they lean more toward one side or the other, but that's really kind of nitpicking. It's really going a little too far. So for now, they're just a technical melodic death metal band in the eyes of this review. And it's going to remind you of names and faces that definitely give them a very nice metal to be surrounded by. You know, bands such as The Faceless, Arch Enemy, Carcass, maybe even a little bit of At the Gates, or, the early Gothenburg sound. So now that you kind of have a little bit of an idea of what to expect, let's talk about the album itself and try to explain and dissect why it is that this is one that has circulated and has definitely been highly regarded. Now, first off, is that highly regarded part something that I mirror? Well, I'm not going to tell you that yet. You have to listen to the rest of the review to truly know. But I will say this. The band definitely has a great way to really combine the efforts of the two subgenres or sub-subgenres depending on your perspective that I listed. There's a little bit of an element of the technicality that you're going to hear, whether it be in just basic riffing and basic song construction, either that or with the soloing that you hear from song to song. And there's definitely a tremendous melodic aspect that this album is really able to possess. The combination of that, along with superior vocals, very, very well executed, and just a fantastic flow to this album, are what really makes this this work a very strong piece of craft, really from the get-go. What you like about the flow about this on this record is the fact that you can easily just let it go and constantly enjoy it from track 1 all the way down to track 10. It's a 58-minute long experience that definitely doesn't get very hard on your watch, mainly because you kind of forget all concept of time. You don't realize that nearly an hour has passed because you're enjoying the album that you're listening to that much. So that's already a strike in the positive direction for Elements of the Infinite. What's another one? How about the songsmanship? What about the songcraft? What about the composition of these tracks? That's something else that we need to speak about. At times, these are songs that really feel that, they are able to blur the lines of the technical and melodic side and make that happy hybrid based around the fact that they don't try to go over and above, in order to really showcase the technical prowess at all times. And that melody, that's something that they're able to combine along with a little technical skill in order to really make something that feels extremely balanced and very well tailored. That's another strike in the positive direction. Because already you don't feel as though you're musically overwhelmed, and you also don't feel like you're listening to something that's musically very simple. So there is complexity, but it's not something that feels like it's overly and forcefully dynamic. Instead, it feels natural. It definitely seems like Allegaeon went into the studio and looked at their composition, looked at their songwriting, looked at their craft underneath a microscope, and kind of found a way to micromanage all of these things in order to really harness all of the best aspects of their music and all of the best aspects of each of the musicians within the band. It definitely seems like this was also one where the songcraft was very ferociously micromanaged to make sure that none of the time really felt like it was wasted. Nothing really feels on this album as though it doesn't belong there. You know what I mean, too. Those albums that you hear something that just sounds a little bit out of place, or maybe is meant to be an illuminating point or just a deviation point, but in reality becomes either distracting, either that, or just kind of a grand question mark, something where you question its presence. And it's a distraction that's enough to kind of disrupt that flow, and all of a sudden the album starts to fall apart. It starts to feel unnatural. This is an album that doesn't have that problem. This is instead one that the flow is never disturbed. In fact, it's something that definitely continues very seamlessly, almost like a river. Now, these are all tracks that are going as high as the 6-minute range for the first 9, and really stay within that 5 to 6 minute long bubble until you reach the very final track. The final track, Genocide for Praise, Vows for the Vitruvian Man, spans nearly 13 minutes in length. And after you go through so many songs that are kind of within that same caliber range, that, high 4 minute to low 6 minute range, you start to wonder if this is something that's capable by this band. Are they able to do something like this and still maintain my attention with the way in which they have been writing for this album? Maybe they've been able to do it in the past, but you have to think about the focused writing and the focused and concerted effort just principally for Elements of the Infinite whenever you really ask this question. It's not a question of whether or not it can be accomplished, but what about on this album? The answer to that question is a bold yes. Once again, as I stated before, this is a band that definitely looked at their work underneath a microscope and found a way to ensure that all 13 minutes, nearly, of this song were enjoyable and had something to offer. Whenever this song started to really fade out a little bit near the, introduction of the 10-minute mark, I started to think to myself, well, what are they going to do with that extra 2 minutes? What exactly is going to happen here? Instead, they introduce a nice soft guitar and do a little bit of minor riffing, a nice little, classical, instrumental piece that definitely gives the album a fitting finale, a fitting outro. It's almost like they said to you, you just endured 56 minutes of insanity. That we've just taken a ride that has spanned all sorts of elements of science, space, the cosmos, physics, things that would make Carl Sagan proud, either that or Neil deGrasse Tyson. So we leave you with this soft memory, almost as though you're returning to Earth or returning back into your body after taking such a strange and wonderful journey. This album does really support the hype that has kind of surrounded it. And the hype exists based around the album, obviously. But this is an album that is hyped for good reason. The tightness and the balance is really very, very praiseworthy. The songsmanship and the very, very careful nature in which the construction occurred are also huge positive points that need to be mentioned. And overall, whenever you talk about balance, flow, and creativity, having a little bit of differentiation between tracks, while at the same time also having an idea that definitely supports the overall body of work, the overall concept, this album possesses that as well. So yes, this is an album that I'm buying into the hype because the hype is deserving. This is an album that definitely demands your attention. Elements of the Infinite certainly belongs in your catalog, and it certainly is one that you should examine. 9.1, or I keep forgetting that we're under a new, code. 91 out of 100, which is the same damn thing for this album. Definitely a top-notch piece of work. There are many that have stated that their second album, Form Shifter, was maybe a bit of a sophomore slump, something that, even though it was better than a lot of other bands in that genre's best work, it was something that after such a powerful debut, that it just didn't quite have the same punch. Well, their junior album, Junior Year, album numero 3, has definitely showcased this band's ability to really command the room and really command the fan base. Because this is an album that will take you right by the balls initially, from its inception, from track number 1, and will not let go. And you enjoy every moment of it. What did you think about this album? Did you buy into the hype? Have you already listened to it? What are some of your favorite tracks? What do you like most about Elements of the Infinite by Allegaeon? What do you think about this band? What do you think should be reviewed next? Comments. All of those things. Great album. Did you know these guys used to want to be called Allegaeon? Or Allegiance, rather. So it's kind of interesting that their name is pronounced Allegaeon. Whenever you look at it, you kind of think, oh, Allegaeon. I thought it was neat. Maybe you don't, but fuck you.